Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to meet you. I just want to talk you through what Orphan is, what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. But basically, as I said in the tagline, Orphan PLC, we're building a leading European rare orphan-focused pharma services company. A long mouthful. Basically, what we're doing, and cut a long story short, we've all, three of us, come to founders, noticed an opportunity. We could put 2 or 3 small pharmaceutical services company together, add some digital technology we have, and create a very profitable, very valuable, modest size, AIM-listed company that makes profits basically every year from after the first year. And that's really what we're doing. So, and we're kind of focusing, we're calling it this rare and orphan disease sector because, being honest with you, it's sexy, but more importantly, it's the fastest growing sector of the pharmaceutical market, and it's also the most profitable. So it's an opportunity, and we just felt we had to go for it. And we have a window over the next 6-12 months to pull something together that will be, say, profitable, very valuable. So let me tell you how we're doing it and why it's been opportunist. Disclaimer, we'll skip through that. Basically, anybody looking to invest in Orphan is really, being frank and honest, it's really an investment in these 3 characters. The top one who's talking, the second one, Morris, and the third one who helped me establish my previous company, Amrit. So all 3 of us, you'll see, have had 1 or 2 exits. None of the exits big enough to stop me having to stand up here and sing for my supper for another year or 2. But the plan would be, hopefully this one might be the one that we'll have finally hang up our boots. But basically, look, my background is really finance. I'm not a pharmaceutical person. I got lucky a couple of years ago. I put a company called Amrit Pharmaceutical together when I knew less than not the pharmaceuticals, other than it seemed profitable. And Amrit today is about to transition over the following week from a 50 million market cap company to management's guidance to 300 million. Now, that's not the share price going up 6x. That's they're acquiring an American company that had $1 billion market cap. They're basically acquiring it for very little. So I can talk more about Amrit later on. So basically, I have a history of just finance person being opportunist. This is the 3rd public company I've associated with. What I claim to make my unique, each one of my IPOs, I generally put, much to my consternation, my wife, I put too much of my own money in. This one, I've got 2 million personal investment in the company, 300,000 of which I put into the IPO at 5.6p at the end of June. Just we have people like the former shareholder. It's primarily institutions who back this, Mighton, Crooks, Living Bridge, and they are all very keen to see the founders write a check, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 at the same price as them. My other colleague, Morris Tracy, these are the 2 scientists who, being honest with you, who know what they're doing when it comes to science. But being honest, this is pulling together 2 or 3 small services company, no rocket science in it, in a profitable sector, and then bolting on digital technology we have, and having something within 12 or 18 months that's going to be doing we've targeted it, trying to get between 30 and 40 million revenue pretty fast. It's a sector, the peer group, it makes 25% pre-tax profits. So within the 2nd year, we want to pay dividends. Morris has a couple of exits, worked with Pfizer. He was a venture partner with Arch Venture. And his last ones where we got him, he put together a company in Dublin called Genomics Medicine Ireland. And he's bringing the genomics piece to our business. So he's the leading scientist in it. He's full-time. Again, he wrote a check as part of the process. The last one, Brendan Buckley. Brendan was Chief Medical Officer. Again, had an exit, sold his previous company to Icon PLC, kind of rarely known company in Europe, but it's one of the biggest CROs, that's clinical research companies based out of Dublin, listed at NASDAQ. He joined them in 2013, 800 million market cap when he sold his previous company to them, and it's now today 8 billion. So Brendan brings a lot of wisdom, how you build a services company with none of this pharmaceutical. Everything's pharmaceutical, high risk, high reward, boom and bust. Icon never took a risk in his life and has got to 8 billion market cap by just doing services to the pharmaceutical company, i.e. providing the picks and shovels. Don't take the risks. Brendan's real claim to fame, along with a colleague here in Oxford, they co-drafted the orphan drug protocols in Europe. And Basically, the first company we've acquired is Venn Life Science, which is a small clinical trials company. Again, services, it's troubled, we're fixing it. And the reason we bought it is Brenton's the only guy I think I know who wrote a book on how to fix clinical trial companies. So he knows CRO, clinical trial business quite well. So he put a book. He doesn't spend all his time writing books, but he gave us great comfort, and he was able to understand how we can fix our first acquisition, which is Venn. So that's briefly our background. What are we doing? And look, it looks complicated, but we're bolting together 3 companies over the next 12, 18 months. And one could say, I have a history of selling out, or what's going to happen in 18 months. It'll be making decent profits. It'll going to be thrown off a dividend. And either we consolidate more or we get consolidated out ourselves. It's not a business. I'm insisting that anybody in the management team gets comfortable. It's not a lifestyle business. It's not somewhere to hang around and hang up our boots. This is a 12 or 18 months run, is what we're saying. So really what we're doing first, and I'll come to that, we've acquired Venn Life Science, purely opportunist. This company had a market cap of 25 million 2-3 years ago. It collapsed last December when I came on board as chairman to 1.5 million. Share price was down to 1p. We basically did a reverse takeover, acquired it, changed its name to Orphan, and reversed our own company. And that requires some fixing in the coming weeks and months. It was loss-making last year. Being frank, it did 14.5 million last year. And it's a difficult business to lose money in, but these guys in Venn managed to lose money most years. Not huge money. It makes a tweak, but they did. Believe it or not, they've never made money. The next piece is Open Orphan Services. That's really just a target of 2 more companies we have in mind. When we say services, that's similar bolt-ons. The third piece is the virtual rep business. We've built this platform. Pharmaceutical sector is probably the second most profitable, or third. The oil and gas industry, BP, Shell, make tons of cash. The big cigarette companies make tons of cash. And up there with the really profitable ones are the big pharma, GSK, Pfizer, Glaxo. Hugely profitable sectors. But what's those 3 sectors in common? What's the cigarettes, the pharma, and the oil and gas? None of them really have embraced digital technology. They say, why bother? We're making so much money. So what we're trying to do is bring a digital reps. They basically, most drugs across Europe are sold by reps driving around in Ford Mondeos with a laptop. On average, most people medical sales reps earn between 150 and 300,000. They're one of the best paid jobs because they don't really kill themselves. There's too big a margin and they don't rock the boat. So really what we're bringing, we're going to try and shake up the business. We've got a digital platform we're going to roll out. Offered as a service. It's not a risk. We built it, offered. And the fourth piece, this is, look, Morris's business, Mark II. He sold Genomics Medicine Ireland, which was basically a genetic database he built in Dublin. Sold it to WuXi, Nextcode, one of China's biggest pharmaceutical companies. And that's really doing the same again, but in a very low-cost way across Europe. Let me tell you in more. I'll probably focus more details on in a minute. I'm going to move through most of the rest of the slides quickly, other than I think I've touched this. Look, pharmaceuticals, the reason why I'm here and I like it is like the cigarette industry, like the oil and gas, they make a shed load of money. EU pharma consulting, high margin, but it's highly fragmented. It's in the US, there's no statistic exactly how big is the pharma consulting in Europe, but in the US it's 9.9 billion alone. It's compound growth of 8.8%, not bad. And then particularly within the orphan drug sector, there's 2,500 orphan drugs coming through that require an awful lot of consulting to get them there. And look, we're tagging on, we're not exclusively rare and orphan, but it's a nice tag to zone in because that is the fastest growing sector. So that's why we use the name orphan drug. And being honest with you, saying we're a European orphan drug services company makes us stand out from all the other companies who seem to be afraid to say exactly what to do. We're providing orphan drug services. Orphan drug, look, I'm not going to dwell on this. The reason it's an interesting sector when I say we're not exclusively on it, it's basically 20 years ago, the rules didn't exist. 15 years ago, the FDA and the European brought in special rules to speed up orphan drug development. Basically, regardless of what you have IP, in the USA you get 7 years, in the Europe you get 10 years after you're approved, and you can do what you like. Higher pricing power. There's a priority review voucher, and that's what Amrit, my other company I'm involved in, has announced. They have a priority review voucher. If your drug gets approved, you can sell that voucher. It's another way of funding. Trials are much smaller, 62% less patients because rare disease patients are harder to find. But the bottom one's why we're focused, not exclusively. There's 520 orphan drugs on sale in North America. They're all allowed to come and sell in Europe, but there's only 180 in Europe. So a big part of us, our services we're doing, are going to focus on helping these North American companies come in and sell their products in Europe. Again, I keep emphasizing taking no risks. That's timeline, what we want to do here. Open Orphan Health Data is up and running. Venn Life Science we've acquired. Next stage now is basically acquire one more small company before Christmas and then roll out the data platform. So basically that's simple, and then we have a seriously interesting company by this time next year. This might look very complicated, but basically this is the four arms where we roll everything together. We've acquired Venn, and basically we're good at acquiring it. Had a market cap 25 million 2 years ago. The management team ran out of cash, didn't seem to know what they're doing. We acquired it for 4 million, which is a 14 million revenue. Every one of those peer groups in Europe, if you look at Ergomed and lots of other, they all traded between 2 times revenue and 3 times revenues. So we just basically managed to pick this company up for about a quarter or a fifth of what it should be worth. Because it was a public company, run out of cash, the management didn't know what to do, and being honest, we were a bit opportunist. But we give, in the RTO, we give twice the then market cap, which was 2. We thought we'd be generous, we'd offer the shareholders 4 million. We're bolting on 1 or 2 services companies, and then we're using the virtual rep business as an offering to all the pharmaceutical companies in here, and we're doing the health data. So it's relatively straightforward. It's not, now people say it looks like 4 big flappy wings. It's basically bolting a couple of companies together that we can sell ourselves as Europe's leading orphan drug services company. Then, come to that in a second. What was wrong with it? Had only raised 11 million and is 8 years since IPO. Highly operational leveraged, have some fabulous customers. It has some of the best European, Prometheus, Jensen, GMAP, Galapagos, loads of them. The beauty about picking up, if we had to go today and start to try and find these customers, it would take us forever and cost us a fortune. If you acquire, not unlike the previous speaker, if you acquire an existing book of business and an existing company with the customers. So we're going to do immediately is now cross-selling every one of these that we currently have. There's about another 15 customers within then, all pharmaceuticals, and we're now going to offer them our digital offering, our genomic database. So it's actually just literally offer them something they haven't been offered before. The goal was first of all recapitalize Venn. We've done that, restructured, get it profit-making, re-rate, and to be perfectly honest, I spent the last 6-8 weeks since IPO. They have an office in Paris, an office outside Amsterdam, getting rid, being a bit of a thug, we got rid of the ground floor in the Paris office. I said, well, what do you want 2 floors for? They have 3 floors in an office in Breda. We got rid of an office. Some of these pharmaceutical companies in the service, just sort of, everything is mañana. So in the 6 weeks we acquired it, we've got 1/3 of their floor space is gone. And it wasn't, believe it or not, that hard to do. The next piece is basically bolt on another company, and that is work in progress. We can't say any more of that till you hopefully read about it sometime. We've guided between now and the year end. Rolling up, basically Venn did 14.5 million last year, and we acquired it for 4. So our next company won't be quite that cheap, but our next company we'll acquire will be for equity. We're not going to write cash checks. We'll be offering open orphan stock, payable in 4 tranches over 4 years, which gets locked up for 2 years. And by the way, all the founders of Open Orphan who got equity, who wrote checks, we're all locked up for 3 years. So that means we ain't going anywhere till unless we sell the company or it gets very exciting. So really, the target is get us to 30 million. And we're not going to grow that organically is hard work. Take too long. We just bolt on that revenue and do what we did with Venn, cross-sell our digital services. The virtual rep is the interesting bit. Nobody, actually, services company in Europe does this. And you'd think in any other industry, traditional sales reps, the virtual rep is basically, we have a database of the 4,000 physicians who prescribe them. We basically offer pharmaceutical companies access to those. And it's basically nothing more than that. We just built a database. And pharmaceutical companies say, oh, you can set up emails. We set up meetings by emails. We do webinars. And we hand them over and we charge them a fairly large fee for it. Most pharmaceutical companies think, oh, we've got to hire a rep to cover, 3 reps to cover London, 4 reps here. We say, well, why not try digital? Why not just, and this is run from a tiny little call centre in Dublin, all 3 people at the moment. 3 people digitally can do more than 30 people driving around Europe in Ford Mondeos. This is the piece where we're really excited about, is the health data. This is really Morris's last company again. They built, there's a bit of controversy about it. The Irish government's not too keen that they picked up 15% of the Irish genomic DNA database, and some gentleman in China paid 600 million for it. But so there's a bit of issues there. But again, it was not bad for year 4 and 10 people to have an exit. But really what we're doing this time is building a database across Europe, and we will never sell the data. And I'll tell you how we're going to do that. And this is where people talk about, like, I've given my DNA, I hold a British and an Irish passport, I'm part of the UK genomic database. I think anybody should see your database, you never know what you might find. But a lot of people are very sensitive about their genomic database going forward, because it's like giving away your fingerprint or giving away your digital. So we have decided, Morris, who's already sold one company in space, say, look, if I was doing it again, which he is, what would I do? A really quick way to build rare disease patients, and we're not exclusively rare, but it's a nice space to be seen as a market leader. Rare disease patients are quite ill kids, and nobody really knows. They have tons, hundreds of thousands of tests done on them. They've got the genomic database. And under GDPR rules in Europe, which is a pain in the ass for most of us, what we're doing, we're going to the rare disease patients, patient advocacy groups. And the patient advocacy groups basically are the groups of the charities, and there's 880 who help these rare disease patients say, look, we'll try and get drugs faster, we'll try and do this. We've just gone to them and say, listen, you're always raising money. If you tell your patients to share their data, we will host their data on our server. We will never broker it, we'll never let it go. The minute you want it back, you get it back. But we're going to charge Big Pharma money to access the data, to look at it. And it's held in the Amazon cloud server. And then we'll charge them a lot of money for it because they want to see this genomic data. And then we split the profits, or split the cash, 60-40, 80-20, depends. Make sure this. We can't give it to the patients because that's going into like selling your blood in America. But for accessing that data, we will split the revenue we get from pharma. And we've already dozens of pharma companies say, oh, how quick can we get a look at this? Because what some of them will do, they want to just see where the issues with the genome is. They might be doing M&A, trying to buy a pharmaceutical product. They want a quick access. So really, this database will grow really, really quickly because there's 880 patient advocacy groups across Europe. A certain percentage of them will sign up with this because it costs them nothing and we give them cash back. The minute a pharmaceutical company looks at it, we charge them by the hour, by the day, a fee for looking at the data. But the secret to it is we use GDPR. Anybody in the room, if you've been to a dentist, you've been to a doctor, believe it or not, you can ring up your dentist tomorrow. Dentist, I would like to see all my dental x-rays, just for the fun. And under GDPR, they have to send them in digital format. There's a copy of your x-rays. Because anywhere in Europe, that if you have records held digitally, you're not allowed to get a copy of them. But even more importantly, you own those dental records. You own that hospital data. And all we're telling these patient advocacy groups, listen, your sick kids actually own the records. The hospital doesn't. Send a letter. We've set it up on the website. Teach them how to do it. Send a letter to your doctor who has your genomic data. Please send it to the Open Orphan server digitally. Goes up. The minute they want it back, we delete and it goes back. So never. But we're making it clearly using the real GDPR rules. It never leaves our server. Morris's last company, hands up, he sold the genomic data to a Chinese company. Probably say naughty, naughty, but people give their data. They bought it. This case, all we're doing is access. So that's, look, very simply we're trying to do there. Genomic data and digital health platform. So we're basically molding a digital health platform, which we've built already on a very low cost basis with services. Not going to go into this in the presentation. This is where we are over here. There's lots of companies trying to do things like this, but there's none of them narrowing into the rare disease patients. Say, look, we'll host, we'll store your data, leave it with us, and we'll basically monetize your data, but we'll never let the data leave the server. That's the really important bit. Health data, huge demand. So this is where we're doing, we believe that drugs, in my last company, Amrit, owning the drug was really important. I believe now, I think owning the data that the pharmaceutical companies will use to generate new is far more important. So basically, a compelling investment case, new management team, the three of us basically. You're investing in three people, all of who had a few exits, all of who's a 5 in front of our name, and all of who's put a couple of million between us, particularly the bulk of me, into the company. And we're making it clear we're going to have a dividend next year. So this model should not be high risk, high reward. We believe we got the share price from 1.5p last Christmas to about 6p today. It did pop up to 8 plus a few weeks ago when we thought it was running ahead of itself. But the plan would be have plenty of news flow in the next couple of months, get it up, bolt it on, do the second and third acquisition, and let's see in 12 months where that takes us. There'll either be more acquisitions or we might be acquisited out ourselves. That's kind of, I think, in summary. I don't want everybody to get confused saying we're purely orphan drugs. Look, being honest, this is very opportunist. We've jumped on that bandwagon because there's very few people in Europe saying we're the orphan drug services company. It's a great way of just opening doors. Say, look, we're the orphan drug services company. We get to the patient advocacy groups and we're using Ven's customer list to kick things off. And I think, according to that, it's time to wrap up and have a few questions.
Very much indeed. Thank you.
Hello. When you took over Venn Life Sciences, presumably they imploded. They had imploded. So, what happened to their customer base? How many customers did they lose? What kind of revenue did you lose? Have you recouped it? What's the status of those customers? And have you got them back? Have they stayed? Etc. Etc.
Yeah, good question. Again, pharmaceutical companies, I keep saying, a bit like oil and gas and tobacco, they make so much money they don't like seeing their name. They'll be probably in trouble for having that up there on the slide. But Venn has about 80 pharmaceutical companies as customers, some of them quite small, some of them quite big. At the moment, they haven't lost any. They had been losing customers last year and the previous years. They did 18 million the year before last, then 14 last year. So our model issue is arrest, slow off that decline. We've done that. So at the moment, we haven't lost any customers. And we'd hope to add to it because there were customers sitting on the fringe and say, Ben, if you sort your balance sheet, because we're a public company, I had to put my money where my mouth is. I won't use the words I might describe them, but at the end of March when I was on the board, Venn ran out of cash and rang up, hey, mister, give us a few bob to pay the payroll. So then I had this public, I think it causes consternation with the broker and the shareholders. We got a week's notice that Venn couldn't pay his shareholders, pay his payroll at the end of March, and I personally had to write a check for 250 because the shareholders said, well, hang on, we can't write checks at a short notice. So this is kind of, immediately after that, there was a switch. I had to go in as a CEO, and the Venn CEO stepped aside because it was a bit silly giving the board a week's notice that we couldn't pay the payroll. You normally plan to have at least 4 or 5 or 6 months notice, issues like that. So yeah, to answer your question, we haven't lost any customers. We're hoping to acquire more. There were customers, there's 1 or 2 big customers sitting in the wings that want to see the cash come in and stabilise it. So at the moment, it's steady she goes. The big part of the fixing is, like, being honest with you, if you get a little bit thuggy, getting rid of some of the spare office space in Paris, getting rid of the spare office space in Breda. It's relatively cheap office, about an hour west of Amsterdam, or east, I mean, going the wrong way, west you'd be in the water. And trying to take out some of the costs because it had too much costs in there as well. So we'd fix Venn and roll out the digital platform to the Venn customers. That's what we're doing.
So is Venn now cash positive?
To answer you, no, not yet.
Still losing money?
Getting there. Okay.
What's the burn?
Not at liberty to say that, but if you look clearly at it, we're guiding making profits next year. You can see the burn is actually shutting down rapidly. But we can't, I don't think it's appropriate to say where we are in that regards, because this is week 9 since we acquired it. But we're all to say, I'm not waking up in the middle of the night worrying about the 2 million quid of my wife and my own family money I've put into it. I'm comfortable. That's in safe hands.
I think you mentioned that your target revenue was 30 million. Was that for the whole group? If so, when do you think you might get there? And at the point when you get there, what do you think your earnings per share might be?
Yeah, we've got, and again on the presentation, 14.5 million last year, 1 bolt-on this year. The target is to get to 30 million by the end of next year. We said that in our initial investor presentation. And this is a highly profitable sector of the market. Venn didn't make money because it was, to be honest, I think it was charging too little money, had too many offices, had too many people. It should be a business, the pharmaceutical consulting business, Why does Ergomed, why does a bunch of these other companies, Clinigen, etc., all trade on 3 times revenues? If you do a back of an envelope, that must mean they're making 25% pre-tax profits. And that's the target on Venn. 30 million turnover at the end of next year, making 25% pre-tax, not gross.
You mentioned kind of cutting costs. Have you kept in the management team? Are you going to bring new management in?
Because it's a small company, I think self, Brendan and Morris, we don't need much more of a management team.
On the Venn part of the business, have they gone, the previous?
One, Tony Richardson, who put it together, and he was working hard just to keep it alive. He's gone. But the rest of the management team are there. But the management team had been probably very, very small anyway. And I think myself and Morris and Brendan, we don't really bring in too many more management team in. I think this is always going to be a modest-sized company, and everybody should be fee earners. Our focus is less management team, more, because in a services company, it's a bit like stockbroking. You're either a fee earner or a cost centre.
My other question was around the services that drug companies, or in particular orphan drug companies, require. Obviously, with Venn, you've got the trials, and you mentioned the sales through the digital platform. But are there any other services? What are the other key services or high margin services that drug development companies use? Yeah,
look, drug development, we're targeting, drug companies outsource everything, bar the actual selling of themselves and bar the research and development, so everything in between. So Venn provides pre-trial, will the trial work, provides trial services, and then our 2 digital ones is we're bringing the virtual rep piece in, and that's the virtual rep is 3 kids in the basement of our office in Dublin setting up meetings for pharmaceutical companies across Europe. Kind of think it would be obvious. Most other industries do this, but pharmaceutical companies don't use call centres to set up. They have a rep driving around doing it themselves. And then the genomic database, that's one we'll see news flow. We're going to really focus on that because that's the one that adds a huge bit of value. And because we've tagged ourselves to say we're the rare disease orphan drug specialists, and we've realised there's a huge amount of genomic data available from those kids, and we can monetize it on their behalf. But that genomic data will never leave the server, and even the company changed hands, the final owner of that data are the patients, and they can always call it back.
I apologise if I'm going to ask this question in a rather naive way, but this new genomics database, I mean, how many separate people's genomics data do you think you'll have to collect in that database for it to become attractive to, I'm assuming Big Pharma will be the consumer of that data mainly? Because we can't be talking too many people, because it's about 65 to 100 people per trial on orphan drugs of 2,500 you mentioned in the pipeline. So I'm just trying to get a flavour for how difficult it's going to be for you to collect that data, just in terms of the amount of people.
Yeah, look, how it is, there's 880 patient advocacy groups across Europe, okay, the whole way within the EU, and we're focusing, we're not going Eastern Europe, we're not going outside, we're very much keeping our platform Europe. There's 880 of them. Each one represents a group of patients somewhere in Europe. Basically, even we only had 400 or 500 patients' genomic data. Pharmaceutical, for a rare disease trial, for a rare disease indication, say where 25, 30 patients' data is all you need. We're sitting our deck, we think we can get this up to 10,000 patient data by the end of next year. And that makes it unbelievably, because there is a valuation in the presentation we've put up, and it's on our website, is that each person's data is on average worth €5,000 if it's rare disease.
And the data's being collected from within a trial, is that correct?
No, it's basically, and this goes back, these patients have the genomic data themselves. The hospital's been analysed them. So all we do is tell the patient, tell the hospital, send a copy of our genomic data to the Open Orphan server, and they're going to host it for us. And it usually comes in a memory stick or it comes digitally. So the rare disease patients across Europe have this data. They're not using it. It's a bit like everybody in the room has had a dental x-ray. Well, you actually own that x-ray under the GDPR rules. You can ring up your dentist tomorrow. Can I have a look at my digital data? And by the way, I want to own it. And under the GDPR rules, the dentist has to send you a little memory stick with your x-ray, and he can't charge you for it. So we're doing the same.
Last question. Will Amazon guarantee that the data will be held on servers based in Europe rather than America?
Even better, we're being a bit naughty. We're insisting it's held in our Irish data servers where we can keep an eye on it. That's been, and it's because we just were worried that, look, we've been insistent that AWS, and they have two server farms, it's backed up on one, and we say that's the only way we'll trust it is there where we can go and there's our data on those. When we say the cloud, it's actually a data center.
That's a really excellent question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Cathal. We're out of time there.